Hey guys, welcome back here to the Fishing Teacher, and appreciate you guys coming by the channel for today's episode. We're going to be talking about bass and how good they can smell in today's video, and really talk about how it impacts your fishing, because there's been studies as far as how good a bass can smell, or how different studies think a bass can smell. I don't think anyone really knows for sure. I do know they can smell, and I do know that smell has an impact on them. So what I'm going to do in today's video is I'm going to give you my experience, sort of my theory, so to speak, from what I've seen in bass fishing about how bass feed and relate to smell, and what you can do to sort of help that out a little bit in today's episode. And speaking of smell, guys, we're going to be talking about what I use on my lures, my scent. This is Baitpop, guys. I've been using this for the last 6 months or so. It's got real fish in it, amino acids, stays on your bait forever. It comes in a bunch of different, glitter colors and different colors you can put on your bait. And what I do, I just put a dab on my finger like that, and I'll just take it and I'll rub it into all of my lure. I use it on hard plastics and soft plastic both. Stays on for a long time. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why using a scent like Baitpop or whatever your favorite scent is really a big deal. And also, guys, I'll put the Baitpop link in my description of this video through my Tackle Warehouse link. If you guys like to order some of the Baitpop through my Tackle Warehouse link, you can get it there, and good way to support the channel. And guys, thank you very much, man, for subscribing here to the Fishing Teacher, and everybody that's joined as a channel member of the Fishing Teacher. Really appreciate that from me and my family. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this. I got some theories on this, and I've talked about scent, some in the past and some of the videos I do, because I'm a firm believer that bass can smell. And I've always thought this. I remember back when I was a teenager, I was reading stuff that Doug Hannon had written, and people talking about bass smell and that type of stuff. And I started making my own scent. I take like different type of oils, and I'd put garlic in them and anise oil, and I put them in a little spray bottle, and I'd spray my soft plastics, because it always made sense to me. It's like, if you can get a lure not to smell like your human hands, and back then, there was this big trend that people thought that the human scent was offensive to a bass. I'm not sure how much I agree with that or not, but I wanted to mask the scent. So I used scent my entire career. I was on the Fish Formula Pro staff for years, and I have seen throughout the course of my own fishing that it makes a big difference on not only the lures that you think it would, but some of the other ones too. Now, one of the things you have to realize is when a bass, let's say for example, you got a jig, and that jig is on the bottom. If you've ever watched a bass, and I've watched them in clear water, very seldom, I'm not saying they don't, but very seldom will they, like your jig or your plastic worm, will hit the bottom and they just like run down there and gobble it up. Most of the time what they do, from what I've seen in my own experience, is they will go down on a bait, and they may get their nose like that far away from it, just like that, and they will like they'll look at it from different angles. I've seen them even turn upside down on it. So they're that far away from the bait. And I think what they're doing a lot of times is they're not only trying to get a visual if they think this is something real, but they're also trying to smell it. So it only makes sense if you've got a bait that's laying on the bottom, a plastic worm or a jig or whatever. If you put scent on it, if that bass is down there close to it, they're going to smell that scent and not the plastic. Now, they say in some studies that I've read, they say that a bass has a greater sense of smell than a dog. I'm not sure if I believe that or not, because I think that if they could smell as good as a dog, I don't know if they'd ever bite a lure, simply because it doesn't smell like a piece of meat. Like a dog knows the difference between something that's edible and something that's not. But I'm not sure on that. I do know that it makes a difference to some extent. Here is what I think in my own fishing, as far as the benefits of using scent or not using scent. If let's say for example, you go out fishing for a day, and if you use scent on your bait, or let's say you don't use scent, let's say you go out throwing a plastic worm all day long, and you catch 15 fish on a plastic worm that doesn't have scent. It's been my experience, and the reason this is how I justify my experience, because a lot of times I will use scent like in the tournament, but a lot of times I won't use it in practice, because I don't I'm not really after a lot of bites. So I won't use it in practice a lot of times, and I'll use it in the tournament. If you use, if you do not use scent on a lure and you catch 20 bass, I think that if you use scent on a lure, you're probably going to catch at least 25 bass. I think it adds probably 10 to 20% more bites on a slow bait, especially like a jig, a shaky head, a Ned rig, something that's soft, that's slow and on the bottom where a bass can get real close to it. I also think it has an impact on some slower moving baits. I know for sure, I'll give you one example how I know this for sure. I was fishing a Bassmaster Invitational down at Lake Eufaula in Alabama a long time ago. This has been, man, probably 25 years ago. And I was on the Fish Formula Pro staff at the time. And I was slow rolling a big spinnerbait down a rocky bank. And the first 2 days of the tournament, I had 20 pounds a day, and I was in second place going into the last day of the tournament, slow rolling the spinnerbait. So I was using scent very heavily on the spinnerbait. And the second day of that tournament, this was back when we had a draw. You drew, it was pro on pro. So I had the guy that I drew was up front fishing with me. And I caught 20 pounds before he hadn't even had a bite. And I had 20 pounds, and we were both on a spinnerbait. I even gave him one of the spinnerbaits I was using. He saw exactly how I was working it, and he was frustrated. And I was in a good mood. I had just caught my second 20-pound bag, and I said, man, the only thing that I'm doing different is I'm putting scent on my lure. I gave him some of my scent. He put it on his lure. Like the next cast he put it on, he caught a 5-pound, 11-ounce fish, and he caught another one about 5 pounds about 5 minutes later. That was the only thing he did different. So I think if you're using a slow bait, like a spinner bait, maybe a glide bait, maybe a swim bait, something like that, you can also use scent on it. Now, I know a lot of the expert big swim bait and glide bait fishermen use scent on their baits, and they use a thick scent, almost like the buttery type scent, like the Baitpop is. And they do put scent on those big glide baits and swim baits for sure. So the main thing, guys, is I do think it plays a role. Yeah, you're still going to catch fish without it because you're going to capitalize on other impulses from the fish that actually make them strike a lure, like curiosity and reflex and anger and competition, all that type of stuff. But when you're talking about a bass that is purely feeding and wanting to feed, and this is especially true at night. If you guys fish at night, you always want to use scent at night. It's better in those low light conditions like that. Definitely start using it. I mean, it's going to help you all the time. It's never going to hurt you. And another thing, I'll give you one other example with it. There's down here at Table Rock Lake where, I fish all the time. There's a lot of guides on Table Rock Lake, especially since Bass Pro Shop has their marina down there at Bass Pro. So there's tons of guides out. A lot of the guides on Table Rock Lake, they don't do anything except fish live bait. They fish live night crawlers and they fish crawdads, for their clients because the bass hit them so much better. Now, you can take a crawdad imitator, a soft plastic lure that looks just like a crawdad, or you can take a little soft plastic looking minnow that looks like a minnow, and you can drop it down into a school of spotted bass, and you may not catch one on the soft plastic crawdad or the minnow, but if you put a real crawdad or a night crawler, they'll gobble it up as soon as it gets down there, even though it doesn't look much different than the plastic models, because the plastic models are so realistic. It has to be the smell. It's like when you're talking about fishing 30 foot down, it's pretty dark down there. So if you have a realistic looking minnow, like on a drop shot or something, and it's 30 foot underwater in that low light, they cannot see that thing that good, but they can smell. And a real minnow, they smell it, and the plastic, they don't. That's why it's a lot harder to catch them on artificials than it is real live baits, just because of the olfactory sense there. So anyway, guys, that's my 2 cents on that. Hope it helps you guys out. And guys, do try, if you haven't, man, try that Baitpop. I don't want this to sound like a dang commercial, but I've used about every scent on the market. I've experimented with it. I absolutely love that stuff. I think you guys will too. I'll put that link in the description. So appreciate it.